Alright, here we have a quick unboxing and first thoughts on the Fuji X-T2. Now we have the booster grip and some accessories and some first thoughts. If you want to skip through any part of the video, just look at the timeline below. Alright, so stick around for the unboxing or skip ahead. So here's the box, very nice packaging. I'm a new Fuji user, never had Fuji anything, so I just kind of want to go through this a little bit. Now, as you see, it's packed very nice and everything is put together really good as far as presentation, if that matters to anybody. Battery pack, nothing special. It's the battery itself. The battery doesn't last very long, but it's good enough, but they are kind of pricey if you need to buy more. Now that's the charger. Now this little thing right here is actual flash that you put on top of the camera if you need that. This is packaged very well. It has a kind of like a silver sticker on here, so as soon as you open this wrapping, you can see that it's been voided or it's been opened. We have great build quality and great details, as you can see in the body. Now here's a flap here, and you can have the dual SD cards, which is great welcome coming from especially like a Sony full frame A7 R2. Alright, so on the side we have a mic port, USB 3, micro HDMI, and a remote port. There's no headphone jack, unfortunately. Let's use the booster grip. So one thing a lot of people like or enjoy about this particular system is the hands-on controls in these dials. Now you can still put it in automatic or shutter priority or aperture priority mode with the flip of a dial or a switch. Changing your shooting or metering mode is easy as well by flipping the dial on the side. It's a little harder to get to, but it's still there and it's very customizable. The whole camera in general is very user friendly without even needing to look over the camera itself. I've never used a Fuji before. I didn't seem to have to look for anything. It just everything was there where you naturally would think it would be. I saw some people say this dial right here was a little loose. Mine has no play at all, so I'm not sure if they had bad copies or they changed it. So this camera is really great. It has a lot of customizable features and hands-on controls. So the flip screen is really nice. It's very unique in the way that it opens and closes because it does it also in portrait mode. The only thing I don't really prefer is that it kind of has these hard stops the way you open and close it, and sometimes it makes me feel like I'm going to open it and pull too much pressure on it and maybe break it. It's not going to break, but it just feels like it. So I personally put L brackets or Arca Swiss mounts on every camera that I own. And if you see this particular one right here, it only costs around $20, but it adds a nice little handle or a bump on the grip for better control. Now, if you look at this next to something like a Sony A7 R2, which is another mirrorless body, it looks very similar in dimensions. So if you're used to one, you have no problem adapting to the next one. Now here's the battery grip, or what they call a booster. It has the different ports here. One is for power, one is for a headphone jack, and this is also weather sealed as well. You still have nice control and functionality with the buttons, the function, the Q button. You have normal and boost mode. So this battery grip is not just the battery, but it's also a performance booster. You can put 2 batteries inside, and you can also put one inside of the camera for a total of 3. It still has the joystick, and you can actually leave all the batteries in the camera. I really don't do that anyway, but you could, and you can just plug it in with the AC power adapter. So for me, I really didn't get the battery grip for performance purposes for photography. I got it because I didn't know how I would feel about the Fuji X-T2 for video purposes. But in order to shoot longer and to have better battery life, I figured this was a necessity and I wanted to try it out. One thing about the Fuji stuff is the build quality and attention to detail. So if you look at that material right there, it's kind of like a suede or microfiber type material. The grip also feels really nice in the hands. So for me, I'm new to Fuji. I have no native lenses at the time of making this video, but what I did have is some FD lenses hanging around from my cinema cameras, and it's what I also used when I first was dabbling in Sony to see if I just liked the system in general. So this is the one for the FD mount. This one works very well. It's very inexpensive. This is the 50 f1.4. If you're going to use vintage or older lenses, make sure you have some type of lens hood as they're prone to flaring, and some of them are aesthetically pleasing while the others are not. This is the adapter here for the Nikon G lens. It's an FX adapter. It controls aperture, but I had trouble with the Tokina 11-16. It wouldn't focus to infinity at all. It was very soft and basically out of focus, and so I decided to let that one go. I'm gonna get into showing you some samples. I didn't go through all the color profiles, but what I wanted to do is show some of the ones that are a little more popular or seem to be the ones that people talk about the most. One is Provia Standard, which is pretty much the standard everyday type of profile for coloring. And they have different type of black and white profiles. They have what's the other, color chrome, or excuse me, classic chrome is one of the most popular ones as well. For me, classic chrome, Provia, if you look at them, despite what the description says, you have to use it in your own environment and how you may think you may want to use it. And it can render things slightly different than the way you want or the way you think it will. So I'm gonna show you a couple examples of how I'm going to use some of these. And these are just demonstration images, candid, unscripted, just regular images to show you how it renders right out the camera. All right, so this first demonstration image right here is with the Acros red filter. I find that the red filter brightens up the whites. So if you have a high key image like that, it kind of helps with the skin tones if you want that look. I find the standard kind of makes more of a balanced look, and your skin tones will be a little darker, or the lights will be darker. With these two, the classic chrome is on the left, Provia standards on the right. You can see how the classic chrome is a little more muted, while Provia standard here looks a little bit more kind of normal, vibrant, kind of what you see in real life. Now here's more black and white with the Acros green shadows on the left, +1, and you can see the green profile on the right. So on the right, left with +1, it kind of darkens the blacks up a little bit, a little more contrasty look. And here's the Provia standard on the left and the classic chrome again on the right. And as you see, it all depends on what you're taking a picture or filming, because in certain circumstances like this, it's really hard to tell a general difference in the profiles. Even with this right here, Provia standards on the left. And if you look at the right with the leaves, the right is classic chrome. And if you look at the backgrounds, they look almost identical. The leaves look slightly different in the green hue, but they pretty much look indistinguishable. So it really depends on the scene. And the more that you use your tools or these cameras and play with the profiles, you'll get a better idea of when and where to use them. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you was some video footage. Mind you, it's nothing exciting to look at. It's just some ants and some dirt. And I like the black and white profile. So I have the Acros again mixed with, I think I go back to the Provia standard. The depth of field is kind of crazy because I had a 70 to 210 FD lens, and I could only stop it down so much in the shade without boosting the ISO too high. So you're basically going to have to just look in the center of the frame to see what's in focus when things do come in focus. And as far as I can see, the 1080p is what I shot it in. Looks pretty detailed straight out of the camera. Now, with that being said, the reason why I did 1080p and not 4K is at this point, I don't need the 4K. I am going to test it, but I didn't have time to do all that, especially with ants. Most of the cameras that you see, depending on the manufacturer, really doesn't matter. The 4K abilities now on a lot of these cameras, despite maybe color and dynamic range differences, the resolution, the sharpness, the clarity, the details are all pretty good at this point. And I don't doubt that the 4K isn't going to look pretty crispy in resolution or detail. But one thing that usually lacks in those same camera bodies that offer 4K is the 1080p now. So that's kind of a trade-off that you get. So I wanted to see how the 1080p looks. So as long as the 1080p is good, then I know the 4K will be even better. So if I ever need 4K, I know it's there to use. And if you look at the parts that are in focus in the video, you can see the fine details in the rocks and the dirt and the ants. So the next thing I want to show you is, I haven't really shot this camera, put it through paces in harsh environments, but I did notice a couple of issues. One of the issues was that the camera, it never overheat where it shut down, but it did get pretty hot to touch a few times. And all I was doing was taking pictures, and I was indoors, raw and JPEG fine. And I wasn't even in burst mode. I wasn't even using an autofocus lens at the time. And it just got really hot, like noticeably hot. It wasn't just a little warm. It was pretty hot. My Sony has never even felt that hot, and they're known to shut down from shooting too long, especially with video. So this was just photography. I didn't have a battery grip on it. I didn't have an off-brand battery. It's just the Fuji brand that came with it and the L bracket. It never shut down, but it did concern me a little bit as it was kind of warm to the touch, a little more than what I would expect or have ever experienced with any type of camera. This happened to me twice actually, and I'm not really sure what this was from. I'm not trying to make excuses for it. I'm just trying to figure out why. It happened with two different brand SD cards, a SanDisk and a Lexar. Both of them were top grade memory cards or SD cards, and two different occasions, two totally different scenarios. And I think it was still, inside regular shooting around, and I caught it. I decided to record it the first time. The second time it just happened, I didn't do it. All cards were formatted, etc. It just randomly, on the right hand side where your hand grip is facing you'll see a little LED light that blinks, and I guess it blinks back and forth as it's writing to the card. So what happened for me is that I don't know if it maybe I was trying to review the image before it was ready. Maybe that could have been it, because I honestly don't remember if that's what I was trying to do, because I have it set to where it doesn't show me a preview after I shoot something. And I don't know if that got it jammed up or what basically happens is, as I'm reading to the card, it never actually finishes reading to the card. It just keeps blinking. It never stops. You can't turn the camera on and off. No matter what you do, nothing works. It's frozen. The light keeps blinking. The only way to turn the camera off, you have to take the actual battery out of the camera and then turn it back off, and then put the battery back in and turn it back on. And then it doesn't happen right after that, so I'm not really sure what that is. But that same image that ends up blinking back and forth actually never writes to the card. Not really sure what that's about, but it did happen to me 2 different times with 2 different brands, high-end SD cards. So I'm not really sure. At the end of the day, so far, I would still recommend this camera. I think it's a great companion to what I currently use. And if you have any questions, just keep up with the current videos as I'm releasing more, doing some side-by-side stuff with this and the Sony stuff, since they kind of somewhat directly compare with each other as mirrorless bodies. Stay tuned. If this was helpful at all, please hit like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification icon to get future updates on future videos, or visit www.howtoandreviews.com. Till next time.